Welcome to the Soulfire Podcast, where every day we talk about real life, real shit, real raw. On this show, you can expect us to dive deep into topics like marriage, parenting, money, business, feeling like you want to give up, fighting for yourself, just straight soul healing. This podcast is all about life. Hey there, it's Power Coach Alishia here, your source of fun, funny, exciting, entertaining, and educational life coaching, transformational speaking, and soul healing. We're talking about setting your soul on fire. I specialize in helping women put themselves first without feeling guilty, getting out of their own way, and finding themselves again. No fluff, no hand-holding, no bullshit here, just love, light, and peace as we journey through this thing called life. Welcome back to another episode of the Soulfire Podcast. And this episode's going to be a little different than what you have been used to so far. So I've always wanted to dive deeper into planets and all of that sort of thing. I've been doing full moon and new moon rituals, all of those sorts of things. But there's something that I've been living by since 2012, 2013, well before I was a full-blown, extremely successful direct sales and life coach, and that was Mercury being in retrograde. So first, I'm going to tell you a story of what happened to me and my first experience with Mercury in retrograde, and then I'm going to go into some details and some information. Now, I am not like fluent on Mercury retrograde. I just know my experiences and what's happened to me and what I do. So I do have a post that I pulled up from horoscope.com that I am going to be talking to you about Mercury retrograde, the do's, the don'ts, what it means for you, what happens with it, all of that good stuff, because I want you to have educated information to move forward with Mercury retrograde in your life. One thing I will tell you before I start my story is for the year of 2022, Mercury goes into retrograde 4 times. We are currently in a Mercury retrograde and it will last until February 3rd. So every single time Mercury is in retrograde, I'll more than likely do a podcast around it and what you can expect and what's going on and that sort of thing. So I'm hoping that this is really helpful for you. I will also do my best to remember to link to this article on horoscope.com. So I want to say it was late 2012, early 2013. I can't remember like when this all happened, but I had this assistant that I had hired off of Facebook, and she was helping me with my business, working with clients, getting them access stuff, whatever. So I told her that I was looking for a business coach, and she's like, oh, well, I know this business coach in my networking group that I'm in. I will connect you with him when you get here, because we were going to Colorado and we were going to see Daniel's cousin, and then we were going to hang out with my assistant and get to know them a little bit better, whatever. So not only was her house fucking wretched, but it was Mercury retrograde. So we get to Colorado. We're staying with her for like 2 or 3 days. At this time, she'd probably been my assistant for like 4 or 5 months. So it wasn't like brand new assistant. Now I'm going to go stay with her. But we get to her house, we're getting all set up. Like we ended up staying in a room that had like stuck dog shit on the floor. The house was a complete fucking disaster. There was shit everywhere. Not to mention that it was the blazes of summer and she had 0 air conditioning. So it was hotter than fuck in there. The kitchen was full of dishes. Like, it was atrocious. I'm not just talking about clutter. It was such an atrocious whole like fucking fiasco. And we were going to stay with my husband's cousin just we were supposed to stay with my assistant for 3 or 4 days and then move to stay with my husband's cousin, and she was having like the carpets clean and something else going on, so we weren't able to go stay there earlier, but we all but begged to go earlier because it was a different whole entire experience there because she had I don't know, it was probably 4 or 5 thousand square foot home. She's a realtor. The house was, backed up to mountains. It was like beautiful. And like, it was a day and night difference. Let's just say it was more my style. So anyways, that's not really the point of Mercury retrograde, but maybe it is, because the commitment to stay in this place that we didn't get any fucking information on ahead of time, probably should have never done it. So when we get to Colorado, though, I think it's like day 2, we are going to meet this coach that my assistant had talked to me about. So go and meet this coach, talk to him about my business, whatever. We're chatting back and forth. He's explaining to me all the things that he could do. And you know what? I'm definitely wrong. We are summer of 2013. Yeah, definitely summer of 2013. And, for whatever reason, at this point, I've heard about Mercury retrograde. I don't know why I've heard about it, but I have heard about it. And the trip was a great trip, but it was also kind of clusterfuckery at the same time. And we were going from Colorado and then heading over to Utah, spending more time. I think we were gone for 2 months from our house in Florida. Went to Colorado for like a week or 10 days, then went to Utah for like a month or 2, and then went back to Florida. That was like our whole plan. So we're on our way from Colorado to Utah, and I'm like interacting with this coach, talk to him about stuff, whatever. And I'm a pretty fast decision maker. So I decide, you know what, I'm going to go for it. We're going to sign this contract, move forward. But then something popped up in my mind. Again, I don't know how I was connected to this. It's been so long now, I don't remember. But I remembered hearing something about not signing contracts in Mercury retrograde. Like, I don't know. So I Google it to see if it's true. And it's like, yes, don't sign contracts in Mercury retrograde. Don't fucking do it. So here I am like, oh, it doesn't matter. Not a big fucking deal. Don't worry about it. Like, it can't be real. And so I signed this contract. Dude, he was not a good coach. He sucked so bad. He didn't really know what he was doing. He didn't have the capability to really help my business go to where I wanted it to go. And he wasn't explaining things to me in a way that I really connected to or fully understood. I felt so confused, so overwhelmed, so frustrated the entire relationship. And because he was really slow, because he was a done for you coach, so he was doing everything for me, and I was paying him for that because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I didn't know how to write emails and sales letters and like all that kind of shit. So he was doing all of that and telling me, just the other little parts, like, hey, you need to make a video for this, you need to make a video for that, whatever, which videos I was down with. I had that, right? So he really like drops the whole fucking ball. And I can't remember the deeper details now because, again, it's been 9 years, but it ended up being to where he cost me $24,000 and I like fired him as my coach. So needless to say, I do not sign any fucking contracts in Mercury retrograde, have not in 9 years, and I will never sign a contract in Mercury retrograde. So there's my story. Don't sign contracts in Mercury retrograde. Even if you don't believe it, don't understand it, think it's going to be okay, it will totally fuck you over. So 2022 Mercury retrograde dates, January 14th to February 3rd. It goes in, well, it went into retrograde in Aquarius, and it comes out in Capricorn. And then May 10th to June 3rd, it goes in Gemini, comes out in Taurus. Woo, Taurus, holy fuck. Okay, let me just tell you a little secret about this little clusterfuckery here. May 10th to June 3rd will be a very turbulent, confusing, back and forth, emotional, happy, overwhelming, defiant, go for it, don't go for it, time. because Gemini is the sign of the twins. So you never know which twin you're going to get. You never know which one's going to show up. One is evil as fuck. The other one's really nice. If you're a Gemini, you will attest to this. They all agree. So it goes into Gemini. So when it first goes into retrograde into Gemini, you're going to have that back and forth, almost like two different sides of you all the time. And it's going to wreak some havoc, especially if you're a different sign. So if you're not a Gemini, then you're going to feel really like weird. Like, this isn't me, because, one moment you're going to be this way. The next moment you're going to be that way. You're going to be like, what in the flying hell, right? Like, this isn't normally like me. I'm a pretty stable person. And then when it goes out of retrograde, it goes out in Taurus, like very powerful. We are pretty materialistic humans, but we're also very bossy, controlling. And the other breath, we're leaders. We love very deep. We're very dedicated. We're very self-driven. So there's a lot of positiveness that's going to happen with the Taurus side as it's coming out of retrograde. However, there's that side of you, like that bossy, controlling, maybe more attitude infested, more defiant, all of those sorts of things that you may be battling with if you're not normally a Taurus. If you are a Taurus, as I am, then it'll be a lot stronger. Now on the Gemini side, I don't think I've met a sign that is more loyal. So with retrograde going, or Mercury going into retrograde in Gemini on May 10th to May 10th, I don't know, probably to 20th, 22nd, somewhere in there. Maybe you'll find the positiveness of reconnecting and having a stronger foundation in how you show up and your loyalty and things like that. But it is going to be pretty crazy. Then September 9th to October 2nd, it goes into retrograde in Libra out in Virgo. And December 29th to January 18th, so December 29th, 2022 to January 18th, 2023, it hangs out in Capricorn. So what you need to know about Mercury in retrograde, and again, this right now is all coming from me, and then we'll go into the actual details, is that when it's going into one sign and coming out in another sign, it affects you depending on what your sign is. So when I give you the link that's going to be linked in the show notes, there are all of these little words across the top. There's overview, dates, relationships, money, by sign, and then 2022. So it talks about Mercury in retrograde, relationships and breakups, the do's and the don'ts, so you can read about that. It talks about Mercury retrograde with money. So I guess we'll talk about the money do's and don'ts, the relationship do's and don'ts, because that's not by sign. But the one thing I think is extremely important is Mercury retrograde by sign. So when you click on your sign, you can see how it's going to affect you, okay? It'll let you know how it's going to impact you as you go forward. And let me just read mine really quick. Being a Taurus, your steadfast attitude can be thrown for a loop during this time. Not only are things not going well, but now your typically calm attitude is off too. Frustrating, right? Usually careful and considered, you make impulsive decisions during Mercury retrograde, which don't jive with your rational way of being. One of the biggest bummers. You miss that close personal communication with the people that you care about. When planned get-togethers go awry, you may blame the wrong people or things. Avoid misplaced anger. So I have been highly annoyed already with Mercury retrograde. I feel disconnected from the people that I love and closest to. So that's right on. But I already felt that way. I already knew that that's what was going on. So let's look at Mercury retrograde as an overview. Then we'll go into relationships and then go into money. So when Mercury is in retrograde, technology, communication, travel, logic, and information all get disrupted. But by understanding Mercury retrograde's meaning, the risks and benefits behind it, the sign that it's in, as well as how long it lasts, can help you deal with astrology's most nerve-wracking event. So here is something I want you to hear. Whether or not you believe in Mercury retrograde, it affects you. So let's talk about what happens when Mercury is retrograde. So you've seen the memes that Mercury's backward tour through the sky is a convenient scapegoat whenever a flight is delayed, a laptop becomes glitchy, or an email goes awry. The planet Mercury is associated with communication, information, electronics, travel, and clear thinking. So when it's retrograde, we have to be ready for a slowdown in all of those areas. Things break, projects stall, we lose things, breakups happen, schedules are thrown off. This planet's reputation for really screwing things up is real, but it's also due to the fast-paced lifestyle we're so used to living. In our technology-focused society where emails, text, and reliable Wi-Fi are everything, the planet of communication has a big job. So when Mercury goes haywire during its retrograde phase, it hits us where it hurts. After all, you might be reading this article on your phone, all between snaps and texts, booking flights, and mapping your route to the restaurant you made an online reservation for. Understandably, if your phone suddenly shuts down, a message gets lost, or travel is delayed, you're majorly inconvenienced. So Mercury retrograde's meaning. Well, let me stop before we go into meaning. So one thing that I want to share with you on this is one of the ways, which this is going to get to in this article, but I'm just going to share it now, and then if it comes up, it's just a repeat, is slowing down during Mercury retrograde, January 14th to February 3rd, right? Slowing down a little bit and taking time off, creating breaks on being on social media and online, which I'm going to do an entire podcast about, which is so freaking important because Mercury is the planet of communication and information, electronics, travel, and clear thinking, when it's retrograde, all those things are jumbled up. So one of the ways to harmonize in retrograde is slowing down in communication, not having extremely important conversations, right? Double checking, triple checking, quadruple checking information before taking action and moving forward. Spending less time doing things on electronics that is extremely important, or saving at a very massive rate, like saving every single time you do something. Travel, I don't recommend during Mercury in retrograde, especially flights. Maybe physical, like road trip travel would be better because you have more control over time, and creating space in that travel for things to come up would be great. And then clear thinking. So if when Mercury is retrograde, your thinking is foggy, there's nothing that you really need to do. Maybe journal some of the thoughts, maybe do some release rituals, which I call adjourn and burn, but just be patient with yourself because once it comes out of retrograde, all these things will go back to normal. All right, so Mercury retrograde meaning. First, the name is deceptive. The planet isn't actually reversing its orbit. Simply put, Mercury retrograde describes an optical illusion during which the planet only appears to be moving backwards from our viewpoint on Earth. So it appears to be moving backwards. A great example would also be, it appears that everything's fucked up in communication and information and electronic and travel, and that you're foggy as fuck. But the truth is, it just feels that way. It just looks that way. If you slow down, if you take a second, you'll see that you can still navigate forward through Mercury retrograde. Mercury isn't the only planet to experience this. In fact, all planets undergo retrograde periods. During this perceived backwards motion, the things the retrograde planet is associated with are cut loose. As it's apparent, it's no longer on track. That's why we see upset with relationships, technologies, or contracts. Did I mention contracts? When Mercury, the communication planet, turns retrograde. It's time for you to get unstuck and put yourself first without feeling guilty. Listen, I've been there before, and I wish someone would have told me how to do it when I was attempting to do it all, giving everything of myself to other people and burning myself out. Luckily for you, you have me, and I've already been through all of that, so I can help you. For a limited time only, my free Get Unstuck Masterclass is open for enrollment, which was designed to help you go from chaos to calm in all areas of your life. This training will help you learn how to put yourself first without feeling guilty, eliminate overwhelm, and stop people pleasing. It's seriously a no-brainer if you want to get unstuck and start living the life you love. And like I said, it's free. To sign up, go to getunstuck.com getunstuck.soulhealingzone.com. Again, that's getunstuck.soulhealingzone.com. So let's talk now about Mercury retrograde benefits. A lot of people associate, and this is just coming from me, Mercury retrograde is 100% negative. It sucks, it's bad, it's horrible, duh. That's not true. There's always the opposite side, right? Cause and effect, good and bad, highs and lows, positive, negative. So there is that positive side with Mercury retrograde. So while this period may feel like it's shaking up your entire world, why did I have to run into my ex sort of thing, Mercury retrograde isn't just a run of bad luck. The harsh side effects of this transit are generally things that are meant to happen for the better, meaning that shit goes awry, but it goes awry to teach you something to help you grow, and you emerge better, higher, more growth, whatever. The relationship emerges stronger, more connected, right? So usually it needed to go awry, and this needed to happen for the good to come of it. This is astrology's way of forcing us to review, recheck, and revisit. Given that Mercury retrograde isn't a time to start something new, I'm going to repeat that 3 times. Mercury retrograde is not a time to start something new. Mercury retrograde is not the time to start something new. It makes sense that we should slow down and recalibrate our lives. That said, you may be thinking about everything ranging from health to career moves. Knowing what to do and expect ahead of time is one of the best ways to handle the inevitable surprises that Mercury brings. Start your new before retrograde, right? Start your new right after retrograde. And during retrograde, clear out, reset, create space for reconnect with your soul, right? Your physical clutter, your mind clutter, and your emotional clutter. I have been doing for the entire month of January in the Soul Tribe Facebook group, which you can join by going to community.soulhealingzone.com. Again, that's community.soulhealingzone.com. The entire month has been about creating space with physical clutter, creating space with mind clutter, creating space with emotional clutter, as well as creating space by releasing other people's baggage. So it's the perfect time. I didn't time it with Mercury retrograde, but divine timing, perfect. So let's talk about Mercury retrograde survival guide. How you can get Mercury retrograde to work for you instead of against you. First, take a deep breath. Despite the serious frustration and even terror that comes with a retrograde cycle, it's not the end of the world. While it may be an inconvenience to deal with for close to 3 months every single year, it's not unmanageable. In fact, Mercury retrograde can be a rich period of creativity and connections. If you're able to be flexible and avoid getting buried in the details, you will emerge without a scratch. That said, you can sign contracts, make major financial decisions, or even start a new job in this time period if you're careful. Okay, so double check everything, move slowly, and follow our list of do's and don'ts will keep you out of trouble. Here, I'm going to say this. Don't fucking sign contracts, don't make major financial decisions, and don't start a new job. I know it says you can do those things, but I don't recommend it. Mercury retrograde do's and don'ts. Do brainstorm. Use this time to think of every available solution to a problem that you're facing. One of them has to work eventually. Be flexible, adaptable, and patient. You may have to step outside your comfort zone to come up with the right fix. I can tell you right now, this Mercury retrograde, I am not fucking patient. I have no patience for other people's bullshit. I have no patience for people not to do what the fuck they say they're going to do. And I have zero patience for micromanaging and listening to people's fucking excuses. Now, generally, those are all things that are baseline in my personality. However, I've grown so much through my impatience that I'm way more patient than I've ever been. But during this retrograde cycle, I am clear back to zero fucking patience. I am 1 second away from wanting to throat punch someone. Next do is to think in broad terms. The bigger and farther reaching the solution is, the more likely it is to work. Stay updated on delays and cancellations while traveling. Keep an eye on your car, check warning lights, schedule maintenance appointments, and monitor that gas tank. That little arrow pointing to F or E might not be as accurate as you think, especially during Mercury retrograde. Back up your computer and phone so you don't lose important data if they shut down without warning. Review persistent issues from the past. This one's a great one. You know that one thing that's really been on your mind lately? This is that perfect time to address it and resolve it once and for all. Here's what you don't do during Mercury retrograde. Don't get into a negative thinking cycle. Things may be falling apart around you, but stay positive and remember, this is just a speed bump. You've totally got this. Be a lone wolf. Don't be a lone wolf. When things break, make an appointment with a professional to get them fixed and then sit tight rather than trying to DIY it. Don't exaggerate. Things are bad enough without stretching the truth, aren't they? Don't plan a big presentation or draft up important papers, especially legal documents. If you can avoid tasks like this, pay close attention to the details. Do your best to avoid tasks like this. Don't rush. Slowing down the pace can help you eliminate costly mistakes. Don't have unrealistic expectations. Because of misunderstandings and mix-ups, things may not turn out as you planned. Avoid disappointment by keeping expectations relatively low. I needed to hear that. Don't set unrealistic timelines. Red tape can keep documents in a holding pattern for a long, long time. So let's now talk about how Mercury retrograde affects your health and mood. When you're stressed, you have a harder time getting to sleep. And during Mercury retrograde, your stress and anxiety levels can be through the roof. Lying awake at night, anxiously wondering how you could have prevented the day's mistakes or about what could happen tomorrow will take a toll on your health. And to make matters worse, sleep deprivation can cause even more problems. Why? Wallowing on negative energy only makes it much more prevalent. So being tired, anxious, or distracted can further Mercury retrograde's effects. For instance, your exercise routine may be thrown off by your wireless headphones dying, or making lunch can become problematic if the fridge or freezer breaks down, stove malfunctions, or microwave freaks out. Have no fear though, we've got some great tips to keep your mind and body in tip-top shape during the period of unpredictability. Holy shit. So I have to explain this. So I have just been feeling extra hungry. I'm doing intermittent fasting, which I'm going to do an entire episode on as well. I guess I better make a couple of notes of some more podcast episodes that I want to do. But I've been doing intermittent fasting, but this week I have been so much more hungry. So much more hungry. I'm like, what in the hell? Why am I so hungry? But that makes sense. Because Mercury's in retrograde. It's throwing things off. And so I didn't realize that until doing this session for you, that it's causing me to be more hungry. But my other story is today I did a full moon ritual, the day that I'm recording this. And my full moon rituals usually go off and my new moon rituals go off without any sort of issues. I wake up. I set up my place, which is usually in my bed. I've found that I love doing my moon rituals in bed. I put down my little heart thing. I put down my nice tapestry or cover that goes over it. I walk through my sacred space, which is also in my bedroom, and I pull all the things, including the angel or oracle card decks, any sort of figurines, my crystals, anything I want, Tibetan singing bowls, the candles I'm going to use, my incense that I have, all of that. I pull it all and I set up this nice setup. Today, I even pulled one of my big Buddha statues to be part of my ritual. It was just so cool. So I get it all set up. But the problem was I had to get up so many fucking times after I sat down and got it set up. And when I sat down, I was getting under the covers, under my blankets to start the ritual. So it was like, holy fuck, my headphones are gonna die. So did a quick 3-minute meditation to get me set. Then I had to get up to go plug them in. Oh, fuck, I forgot the controllers. Got to get up to get the controllers that I need. Oh, I forgot the pot that I do my burn in. I got to go get the pot. Oh, I forgot that some of my crystals are out in the office because yesterday I wanted to murder everyone. So I needed to take action to reset my energy. So I had to go get, it was like, holy shit. Nothing was working right. And so like this example of the headphones dying was a great example. Yes, I get it. So Mercury retrograde, self-care tips for your body and mind. Do make sure that your alarm is set properly before going to bed so you don't wake up late feeling rushed. Do listen to quiet music, put on noise canceling headphones, or wear a sleep mask. Anything that is going to shut out distractions and let you drift off to sleep. Do plan a digital detox. Do plan a digital detox. Do plan a digital detox. Like I said, I'm going to do an entire episode on this because if there's ever a great time to take a break from your electronics and close out all of your social media apps, it's Mercury retrograde. Do practice some breathing exercises to utilize when you're having a technology or travel snafu. There's no use in getting worked up about something you can't control. So do some quick breathing exercise. Don't plan elaborate meals using fancy kitchen gadgets. The simpler the better. Don't watch the news or violent TV shows or movies right before bedtime. Don't use your phone or other bright electronic devices in bed. And don't drink caffeine or eat anything spicy that might keep you up past bedtime. So now you can look at Mercury retrograde inside of your birth chart. And we went to that when I gave you a quick example of what it says with Mercury retrograde for my sign of a Taurus. One thing to know is that you're not alone. In fact, it's estimated that almost 25% of us were born during a time when Mercury retrograde occurred. But what does that mean exactly? So this is when Mercury is in retrograde in your sign. Like I said, the next Mercury retrograde, May 10th to June 3rd, is not only in my sign, but it's also in my husband's sign. So pray for us that we stay married between May 10th and June 3rd of 2022. Because it goes into retrograde in his sign and goes out of retrograde in my sign. And we always plan a camping trip around Memorial Day weekend. So we shall see. Camping tends to be quite the journey because he wants to do things his way. I want to do things my way. And even without Mercury in retrograde, it's pretty turbulent. So we'll see how that goes. Anyways, opposite of what most people think, the significance of Mercury retrograde in your birth chart is not related to karma. So if you are a Mercury retrograde baby, lucky you. This means you're somewhat better equipped to deal with communication-related anxiety. While you might have trouble keeping all your thoughts straight and get frustrated when you can't articulate them, you face and conquer miscommunications with ease. You're also a big thinker, and the great news is that you have a philosophical, reflective nature that helps you deal with negative energy better. So you may be better equipped to deal with Mercury retrograde than the rest of us. Keep in mind, there's that. That's another silver lining. So let's look at Mercury retrograde in relationships. If my computer loads. If it doesn't, then we won't. Okay, Mercury retrograde, relationships and breakup. With communication going haywire, Mercury retrograde can really mess with romantic relationships, family dynamics, and emotions in general. I feel really disconnected from my husband and my kids. I don't really want to spend a lot of time with them. I don't feel like that love and that passion in my marriage, which I was feeling so connected and so happy about before. Our family dynamics are a little weird, shifting. We are watching the playoffs for football and that, so we get that, but they're not, I don't know. It's just different right now. So I'm totally feeling that. You may say the wrong thing at the wrong time, send an awkward text, or double book plans. It's harder to make decisions, so this isn't the time to permanently swipe left or swipe right if you're single. If you're on the fence about someone, whether it's a current relationship or last night's hookup, Mercury retrograde might not be the best time to commit either way. Signing legal documents like prenups, divorce papers, coaching contracts can be sketchy during this time, as it's more likely you'll miss something important, especially if you ignore the fine print. And if you're already If you already have something major planned during a retrograde cycle, like a wedding, don't panic. There's no need to change the date. Just try to be aware of what could go wrong and have backup plans in place. Mercury retrograde tips for romantic relationships. Do go with the flow. The more flexible you are, the better. If a date or partner cancels last minute, give them the benefit of the doubt this time. Follow up on all messages you send, including text, direct messages, voicemails, emails, all of it, to a current partner or potential date. So much can go wrong in this area, so follow up on those. Do repeat yourself and restate things you've already expressed. A current partner may want to be reassured about how you feel about them, and a potential date might not have heard you the first time or may need clarification about exactly what you want. Do also make sure your dating apps are updated. Before the pre-shadow, which is already passed at the time that you're going to listen to this, download the latest version of any apps you're using to minimize the potential for glitches, but you can know that for next time. Don't shoot down an ex who gets in touch. There may be a very good reason they're reappearing in your life. You have some unfinished business. You don't have to get back together, but coffee? Sure, why not? Don't make major decisions that will impact the future of your relationship, especially if you have cold feet, got some intel that might turn out to be false, or feel like your head and heart aren't aligned. It's better to take your time to assess than regret an impulsive breakup. Don't rely on those first impressions. Who knows what kind of Mercury retrograde fallout your blind date is dealing with, so no judging. If it's a definite no-go, remember that kindness counts. The last don't jump into a new relationship or take a huge step in a current relationship. There are too many variables to consider. What's the rush? And if you can't wait, talk out all the consequences. Mercury retrograde in family relationships. Communication breakdowns can be tough on family dynamics. 2, especially when you rely on things like a family text chain to keep in touch. Don't assume that just because you hit send, your message is going to get where it's supposed to go. Family you haven't heard from in a while might get in touch, resulting in potentially awkward reunions. Small children and infants feel the effects of Mercury retrograde as well, and may be fussier than normal, but have no real way to communicate that to you. Be understanding of their moods and sensitive to their needs, since they can express frustration like adults. Teens who are on their phones 24/7 are likely to be more unreasonable than normal during Mercury retrograde, especially if the Wi-Fi goes down or their phone gets glitchy. Overall, when dealing with any conflict, be direct, avoid gossip, and avoid gossip that will lead to needless drama. So that's Mercury retrograde with your relationships. And we're going to wrap up this session with Mercury retrograde of money and finances. How do Mercury retrograde and money affect one another? All of Mercury retrograde's effects, its impact on money troubles is possibly the most stressful. Of all of Mercury retrograde's effects, its impact on money troubles is possibly the most stressful. So no matter what your job is or where you are on the financial ladder, slowdowns are bound to happen when Mercury turns retrograde. At work, communication with colleagues becomes difficult. Misunderstandings can lead to unnecessary arguments. Meetings get canceled or postponed. Resumes are lost. Software and computer problems arise. In terms of money, deposits may be slow or glitchy. Surprise payments or tickets might come up. Loans aren't approved. Investment apps might not function properly. Credit cards are declined. Overall, there can be a lot to deal with financially during Mercury retrograde. So much so that if you're trying to get a business off the ground, you may want to wait. Looking for a job? Yeah, you may not get any bites. But while these things are annoying, keep in mind there's always a way around the problem. When things don't go your way, step away for a quick break, relax, and then use your creativity to come up with another plan. Keeping the big picture in mind, letting go, and following these tips will help you get through any money mishap. So now let's talk about Mercury retrograde money and career tips. Do set alerts and double check your calendar so you don't miss any important meetings. Be flexible about job tasks and due dates. Go over banking statements and receipts carefully. If you're responsible for any office financials, make sure to triple check everything, keeping an eye out for mistakes. Keep some cash on hand in case electronic payment systems malfunction, and be discreet, especially if you're trying to move to another company. Mercury retrograde is prime time for higher up to catch you scrolling through LinkedIn or checking your resume. Don't butt heads with an employer, coworker, or business partner over details. You probably won't get your point across right now anyways, and you may say something you'll regret. Expect an immediate response to a job application or interview. Don't expect that. Potential employers are slow to get back to you during this time. Don't assume your electronic payment went through. Double check bills to avoid late fees. Don't expect high sales, commissions, or tips or new business. People are extra flaky during Mercury retrograde, so they may cancel or put off purchases until a later date. Don't glance over contracts. Triple check those details to make sure nothing is missing. So that is my experience and fabsaucery regarding Mercury retrograde, in addition to the details on horoscope.com. So like I said, will do my absolute best to remember to put this link in the description of today's session. Remember that Mercury goes into retrograde 4 times in 2022. We are currently in a retrograde right now. I don't know if I'm going to redo this session every single retrograde, but I will do my best to remember to bring it up in that timeline so you know Mercury is in retrograde. I will refer you back to this episode, refer you back to the link so that you can get reconnected with it. And also, one of the best things to do is search for Mercury retrograde in how does it affect Taurus? So how does Mercury being in retrograde right now affect whatever your sign is, right? And don't go with the first Google search results, like what it says. Look at 3 different ones and look at what they say and look for the similarities in how that retrograde is going to affect your sign. So you don't want to Google it. Click on the first one and then whatever it says, that's it, okay? Google it, click on the first one, read it, click on the next one, read it, click on the next one, read it, look for the similarities, and that is mostly how Mercury retrograde is going to impact you, your sign and you during whatever sign it's in. So right now, Mercury retrograde it went in Aquarius, out in Capricorn. So when I'm searching, I want to know, how is it going to affect me going into Aquarius and going out in Capricorn? How am I going to feel? What's going to come up for me? What is the best way for me to navigate this? You are going to have to do some research and really build your knowledge around Mercury retrograde. But when you do that, then you are easily more able to function in day-to-day life without feeling like, what the fuck is wrong with me? What the fuck is wrong with you? What the fuck is wrong with this, right? Like, you will feel a little easier, a little better, or maybe a lot better, and flow a lot easier knowing Mercury is in retrograde. Take a deep breath and then move forward that way. So with that, remember to always give yourself some grace. Say yes to yourself more than you say yes to other people. And it's always about progress, not perfection. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to the Soul Fire podcast. I truly appreciate you taking out your time to be here. I would love it if you would subscribe and share. And at the end of each episode, head over to community.soulhealingzone.com. Again, that's community.soulhealingzone.com, and share with me, what was your number one takeaway? What really connected with you? What got your fire lit? What was something that you absolutely loved about this episode? I cannot wait to continue creating more episodes with you, connecting with you, and helping you through this journey on this thing called life. I'll see you later.